I recently worked with a gentleman that came to me with a really interesting goal. He was almost singularly focused on the 10-year rule for his IRAs. And if you haven't heard of this rule, the 10-year rule says that beneficiaries that are subject to it have to distribute inherited IRAs by the end of the 10th year following the year of the account owner's death. You see, he had already explored what Roth conversions would look like for his situation during his lifetime, but as he put it, he wanted to leave the most he possibly could to his son tax-free. And it's this advantage, the one that a lot of planning softwares don't even have a model for yet, that we're going to discuss in this video. I'm going to cover the huge advantage that Roth conversions can provide in that 10-year rule that most people don't consider until it's too late. Well, not anymore. But first, I'm Curtis Crossland of Suttle Crossland Wealth Advisors, and the purpose of this channel is to discuss financial topics and ultimately help people build more tax-efficient retirements. So let's get into it. Now, I've discussed Roth conversions a number of times on this channel, but their importance to a tax-efficient plan cannot be overstated. For certain people, they have the potential to save a tremendous amount of tax over their lifetimes. But those 10 years following your lifetime are possibly the most valuable your wealth will ever get to experience. And before we dive into the example, let me go over a quick refresh on the mechanics of a Roth conversion, and I'll also discuss a couple tips that can help maximize conversion potential. Then we'll look at an example with some real numbers of this in action. And take note, I promise you're going to want to stick around until the end, because some of these numbers are going to shock you. So a Roth conversion is when you move money or investments from a pre-tax retirement account, like a traditional IRA, 401k, SEP IRA, etc., and place it into a Roth IRA. And yes, it is possible to do investments as what's called an in-kind conversion. This action of moving those dollars or investments creates a taxable event whereby you have to claim income on the dollar value that you converted in that calendar year. So if you convert $50,000 in cash from an IRA to a Roth IRA, you'll get a 1099 showing a $50,000 distribution from the Roth IRA for that conversion, and you'll claim that when you do your taxes. Likewise, if you convert $50,000 worth of shares of an investment, you'll also later get a 1099 for that dollar value. So why would someone do a Roth conversion? Well, they do it to pay taxes now on those dollars and convert them to an account that then gets to grow tax-free. I've done several videos on the long-term impacts on tax projections to show the potential benefit of doing this. You can check those videos out next. So what are some tips to help maximize conversions in the long run? Well, first is considering the timing of when you do a Roth conversion. The idea is to do them in years when you have low income or find yourself in a low income tax bracket. This can be an advantage if you're using a year or years where you're paying less effective tax on the converted dollars than the effective tax of what you saved when you put the money in. So simple example, if you put money into your 401k when you were in the 24% bracket, but then converted it when you were in the 12% bracket, that would be a tax savings and a good opportunity to consider it. Tied to this idea is doing them in a series of years where income may be substantially lower for you. And for a lot of people, this can be early retirement, maybe late 50s until around age 70 before Social Security benefits and RMDs kick in. Another tip to maximize is to be aware of any surtax thresholds when you convert. If your adjusted gross income goes too high, you may end up paying things like Medicare's IRMA or net investment income tax. If your taxable income goes way too high, you may end up dealing with 20% long-term capital gains instead of 15% or possibly 0%. You need to understand your own impacts so you can decide the top end of what you want to recognize. And yes, some people do decide to pay the surtax based on their situation and projected benefits. And the last tip I'll leave for this video is to consider how conversions may be impacted if there are volatile markets. And while evidence shows that timing markets has longer odds against you, if you see a large market pullback in a given year, doing an already planned conversion at that time means you may be able to move a larger percentage of your IRA or 401k over to the Roth if balances are down. This could also be important for folks with large IRA or 401k balances that are looking at converting over a number of years. Additionally, the added potential benefit of converting in a bear market could be bounce backs happening in the Roth IRA instead of the regular IRA or 401k. Let's jump into an example of what I'm talking about with all this. I want to quickly show what a conversion situation looks like with real numbers and then focus specifically on the power of those 10 years after death. So over here in the example, we're looking at a couple familiar faces. If you've seen my videos, Joe and Jane. And in this one, we're going to say they are age 62. We're going to say that they are retired now. And we're going to say that they're spending $8,500 per month in retirement. If we take a quick look at a breakdown of their assets, we see a total net worth here just over $2.5 million. And we see that is comprised of two large 401k balances totaling about $1.8 million between the two of them. They've got a bank account with $150,000 between the two of them. And then their house is over here showing $600,000. If we hop over and take a look at the retirement picture for them, we can see that they're in a situation where the Monte Carlo looks good, 100% probability of success. But now you might be starting to notice a little bit of a difference between the projected median terminal values. We've got the proposed plan over here. This is the one that we're going to look at with the Roth conversion. Current plan says no conversion. A couple other just quick details to note. Because we're going to be looking at Roth conversion, we're going to push out Social Security to age 70 to give them the most runway. And this part here that looks at tax proposal is basically just saying that on the proposed plan, we're essentially using conversions, and this is how we're arriving at this Monte Carlo. So we're actually seeing a positive output by taking these steps. And the reason I want to highlight this real quickly is to show you that the Roth conversions have a benefit in this particular scenario. But now let's dive into where the real advantage is going to start to present itself. So I've jumped us over here, taking a look at the tax strategy of conversion. And really all we're saying, at least for now, is we're going to convert up to that 22/25% ordinary income tax bracket. By doing that, in their lifetime, the projections for Joe and Jane are a pretty substantial increase in the amount of tax-adjusted ending asset, a large reduction in the amount of projected taxes paid over their lifetime, and a lot less withdrawals having to be done from the tax-deferred accounts. Now, I do want to take a quick moment to show something because I get this question a lot. There's actually a feature with Inright Capital where it will basically try to run a solver on what is the marginal tax bracket somebody should consider if they're trying to maximize their tax-adjusted ending portfolio value. So let's just take a look at this very quickly. And here we can actually see that the solver is saying if we take an asset location strategy, that's pretty typical. If we have a withdrawal strategy, that's pretty typical. And if you don't know what these are, that's really a good question to ask. Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video on those. But the solver is actually pushing out and saying that if Joe and Jane in their situation converted at that 24/28% ordinary income bracket, at least for the solver, it shows them the highest amount of tax-adjusted ending assets. But the reason I show this is because not everybody is going to be comfortable going to that 24 to 28% bracket. This is often something that comes with those additional surtax. And I also want to make a point because I know somebody's going to comment on this is yes, Joe and Jane are 62. They are in those years where they could be qualifying for ACA credits. And some people will point to those credits as a reason to not do conversions because they'll save perhaps tens of thousands of dollars on health insurance over those few years before Medicare kicks in. But as I've said time and again, this is a give and a take. So imagine if you were going for ACA credits and delaying conversion, you may also be changing the projected value or potential of what your accounts may do or build over the remainder of your lifetime. So yes, there are people that will pay into the higher brackets. They will pay the surtax because for them, they are convicted to do that. They are willing to take that chance of paying more in tax now or surtax now to try to get that higher tax-adjusted ending balance. And let's hop over and actually talk about the advantage in doing that. So if we actually jump over here, take a look at the difference in these tax-adjusted ending portfolio value numbers. The chart on the left is showing us doing the conversion strategy. This is a 22 to 25%, don't forget. Versus doing no conversion over here, we actually see a larger ending portfolio balance. Well, why does that matter? Let's talk about it. Now, this is where the real hidden value comes into focus. You'll notice that Right Capital doesn't yet have a feature to solve for the future value of these next 10 years, but luckily you have someone like me to show you the math. Imagine leaving over $6 million to your heirs in a Roth IRA. Under current law, They have 10 full years to distribute that account, but they can do as much or as little as they want at any point in those 10 years. It just has to be all out by the end of that 10th year. So if they left it in the Roth IRA for the 10 full years, what might happen? Well, if let's say we assumed an 8% return on average annually, we'd see that it may grow to a staggering $13+ million. Imagine them being able to take that money out tax-free. By contrast, if you do no conversions in a regular IRA, they're going to have to pay taxes, but how much? Consider that your heirs may still be working and earning good money. They may already have a high taxable income. But for this example, let's say they would have a 20% effective tax rate on this money. They're going to end up having to pay over $2 million in tax. And it's likely more complicated than that, because they'll likely have to deal with a distribution strategy every year related to your RMD or a yearly distribution. This adds to the headache of dealing with the account. And if they're spending the money each year that's taken out instead of reinvesting it back into a taxable account, they're likely not even going to grow it to that 13+ million figure that we saw earlier. So these can be, in effect, the most valuable years from a dollar and cent standpoint to your wealth, possibly ever. But I'd love to know what you think about this and if this is something you have ever considered or planned for. Let me know about it in the comments either way. This can get very complicated very quickly when you start to think about it for your own situation. There's a lot of nuance with this as well, and some unknowns, namely that no one knows the future or how events may unfold. But if you are worried about this for yourself or really want to take advantage, then it might be a good time to consider working with a professional. And if you're so inclined, be sure to check out our links. I'd also love to know what additional questions come to mind, or if you have another way to think about this. Be sure to let me know that down in the comments as well. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a video discussing your concerns next. Once more, I'm Curtis Crossland, and if you want to see how we help folks build a more tax-focused and efficient retirement, be sure to check us out at SuttleCrossland.com and subscribe for future videos.